Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of AtScale's Data Driven Podcast. Today's special guest is Richard Langlois, and Richard is the president at IT Architecture and Strategy. Richard, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Dave. It's great to be with you. Um, we have a long story, and with COVID, it was a bit difficult to keep in touch in a way. But I saw what you've been doing with the podcast. It's pretty interesting.
Okay, so let's talk about the history. So, listeners, Richard and I have known each other since really the beginning of AtScale. So, Richard, I think you win the prize of being the first customer to go live on AtScale, probably
Yeah,
back in what 2015, 2016 kind of
yeah,
time frame.
exactly.
Um, and it was back when AtScale was the first port that we did was Hadoop. I think you might have been a Cloudera shop. Is that right?
Yeah, quite right. In fact, the funny thing is, I had a growing team at that period of time, and we were using Hadoop for their purpose. Actually, people would have expected using Hadoop for AI, but we were using Hadoop as a gigantic sorting machine for some database appliance, and it was working well. It's just that I was reading about Hadoop, and I was like, I can do more with that. And in the many years before, I was using MPP technology for regular databases. When I say regular databases, I'm talking DB2, Oracle, for example. And they had something that was interesting that was dealing with aggregates. That they were done automatically for you as long as you define them, obviously. And I recall I had a guy who was quite bright in the team, and he was taking some vacation, and he was going in California. And I said, "Look, because you're going to California, just depending where you're going, but if you hear about some technology that can give me the MQT that or materialized views or those type of technology that I used to have, and I was using MPP again. So I had MPP with Hadoop, but I was missing the aggregate functionality. If you hear about this, tell me." And this is somehow I think he talked to you, Dave, and then we got in touch, and that was the beginning of an exciting journey because we had amazing results by using AtScale. We had a situation where we went from 10 times for some queries to like 30 times faster because of those aggregates, and that required an aggregate layer. Now today we talk about semantic layer, we talk about data mesh, data fabrics, and so on. It's still the same thing. You need a definition that is clear, and then you need some automation to help you render good response time. And as people may understand here behind the lines, I was at Yellow Pages back then. The volume was quite high, and so because of that, performance was important. It was really coming from a big data angle. The funny thing with big data, it used to be called VLDB, very large databases.
Hmm.
So I was
Hmm.
DB before people rename it to a big data, but this is somehow how we started, and we had great result, as I said.
Yeah, no, and that was you did have big data. So Yellow Pages is like it was a great sort of first customer for us because first of all, you're a visionary. You wouldn't have gone with a small company like AtScale at the time if you weren't. And you were really great to partner with. So a lot of the success for AtScale really sort of rests with the part with our early partnership where you gave us some great feedback on the product and really pushed us to innovate and innovate really fast to deliver on your use case. So those were some fun times.
It was, in a way, we were in the same boat, right? I mean, we were trying to
Hmm.
achieve, you was for, I think, the product, the market, the new customers, and so on. Me, I was really chasing for technology that could do the work. And we know we were early. I mean, it's pretty tough to be earlier than that, right, with a company. But somehow the support that your entire team gave. So yes, I do feel that we did contribute a bit to the destination of that scale. And I'm very happy about this because at the end, I think both company did benefit, and it was great. I mean, I recall. I have to say it like that. I recall I made a presentation to the chief digital officer of Yellow Pages, and I had slides and I explained a bunch of things and so on. And I'm not going to talk about. We were using some software as a service, large company, but there was no response time. Essentially, it was dying or taking so much time. So I recall at the end, okay, now I had like 10 minutes left, so let's do some queries to show, because we build a prototype with AtScale for the presentation of another project. And I recall when we did the query, and the response time was like a few seconds, and the guy was like, "Why you didn't start with that?" I mean, for as soon as as soon as you saw the response time, it was so. Stop talking. Just show the distance. That's what we. So next time I will know. Depending if we have cases like that, you just show the prototype up front, drop the slides, which is a bit what we're doing today. I'm used to do presentation with a bunch of slides. I decided I'm not going to show a single slide and tell a story with you, Dave.
Yeah, it's like I always find that I do a lot of presentations and a lot of sort of initial meetings, and everybody always perks up at the demo. You got to have some basic slides just to sort of help people to understand what you're doing. But I try to keep them brief because people just want to see the product, and that's really sort of helps them understand better than anything else. And you shouldn't be shy with showing the product. That's my philosophy. But Richard, you are a real innovator, and you are a guy who's crossing the chasm guy. There's definitely an early adopter. So talk to me a little bit about your career and sort of how'd you end up being in that position. Now you're consulting for all kinds of companies, but talk to me a little bit about your sort of path into data and analytics. How did you get here?
Oh boy! I mean, you saw the color of my hair, right?
Oh,
It could be a long. It could be a long.
we share that.
Yeah. But I guess I will go at the beginning real fast though. But I started as a programmer in 1984, so it's almost 40 years ago. And from there, I ended up doing some database. I was with the first relational database. It was called Supra. And when I say first relational database, it's because Dr. Cod said that it was the first one who was above 50% of being with the relational criteria of what is a relational database. So again, I guess I started with something new right there. And the funny thing with being a DBA back then, being a data architect or being a DBA, people didn't really understand the difference. It's a bit like today talking data governance, data privacy, data architecture, data engineering. People were putting things together. So, but somehow we were very early on that. And then I designed multiple solutions as a consultant for multiple firms. I built the thing though, I always did it for one customer. I didn't do this for a software that you then sell to a bunch of customers, but I've done it for a large. I use the technology. I'm talking database technology with large customer in the early 80s, and we built probably one of the first CRM. In fact, before the term CRM was coined, we were building a CRM for the largest mutual fund company in Canada. And we had to be quite creative because for them, each mutual fund was taking about 6 months to be designed and built. And I recall I could not, when I was looking at the size, the number of products, the roadmap from marketing, we were involved at the executive level. So I had a lot of good information. I stayed there. Actually, I moved to Winnipeg to spend a lot of time there. So we came up with something. I spent so many nights trying to find a way to go from a data model, because I believe in data-driven architecture back then, to automate the most of it into a standard way. And we came up with something called QUID, Query Object Insert. People can see CRUD, but essentially it was a data-driven way of building Windows, essentially, and calling Windows. And if you need a reference table, it was called a call quid. And if you need a multiple update, so I built like five standard design, and it was supported hundreds of tables. Funny thing is, you talk with ACP, there are 50,000 tables or even more. But with few hundred tables, we built something that was dealing with a data definition of mutual fund, where you can sell them, under which registration, certain annuities, mortgage, and so on. So we built, similar to investment bank type of product, we built that. And we came up with parties and group and families and all the stuff you find in the CRM. So I guess is when you're stuck with a challenge. And I was young, and for me, the sky was the limit. And so I was trying that, and I always did that since then. And the NPP was one of the first one. Hadoop was the first one in Canada, introduction. AtScale also. I've been doing, now I'm fast forwarding because it's too long, the answer here, but I'm fast forwarding. One of the things I've created, I call it the real-time lakehouse. And the thing with lakehouse is when people hear about lakehouse, they hear about, they go, if you Google, you will see it's the merging of a data warehouse with a data lake. No big deal. So why use multiple technology if you can do everything with one, right? That's the thing. And by the way, that was my thinking also when I went with AtScale. Give me some definition layer. I'm going to use it for OLAP, which nobody was doing Hadoop for OLAP back then. That's the other thing, right? We're doing OLAP instead of doing AI. Then we did AI, so we were a bit reverse, but we were using the capability. Anyway, so the point with the real-time lakehouse is that as the real-time is important here, lakehouse, they will say that all your feeds, they could be batch, micro batch, they could be streaming, and so on. And technically, it's right. That's a lakehouse. What I want, though, is something different. I want a real-time lakehouse for one purpose. You recall about when we started with the slides, we said slide creates context, but then you need to show the product. Well, it's thinking here. I need the context. So yes, I could have sensor, IoT, PLC feeding me in real time. But if I'm on a manufacturing, if I'm in a manufacturing company and I'm beside the production line, I want to know a few things. Yes, I want to know the speed, pressure, temperature, and those things. This is the IoT sensor and so on. But I also want to know who's operating there, the human. If it's Richard, it's 6'1", a bit more than 250, and maybe have a tendency to move to the left when this product is being manufactured. Okay, now I need to know what product is being manufactured. Let's talk about MES, right? So there is some MES in place. You need to know what's happening now, not after it's done when you put it back in ACP. I want it to know now. I want to know it's Richard. Because guess what? I machine learned that when we do this, there is a 75% chance that Richard may be hurt because he has a tendency to move this way and he's a bit tall, let's say, or too big or whatever. So the point is that I'm adding sensor on me. I'm adding sensor on the production lines. I know what's happening. Now, if the flow of data arrive not in real time, and you know it was Richard, and you know it was this product, then you can explain why Richard is now unable to work, and you're paying for that, right? So it's after the fact. It's a bit like doing fraud detection after it happened. You want to stop while it's being done. I want to stop the machines by sending PLC. So it's not now just going one way, right? It's also interacting back to your operational system and your manufacturing system to stop. This is one use case. Now, what happened with the real-time lakehouse is that the more I did that, the more I create what people will call, I call it contextual richness. So contextual richness could lead you in different things, because when you do AI, you need to select the features that are relevant to what you're trying to optimize. If I use AI in a general optimization problem. But that's the thing. Richness allows you if you do the proper feature selection, to have some use cases that you could not do in a traditional lakehouse. So I've been doing that for multiple years, and I call it real-time lakehouse. I did present that, and this is but all the innovation, starting back with the first relational database. So I'm an early adopter. I don't know about innovator, but without any doubt, I'm an early adopter, and I use this technology to solve business problem. And I use the term use cases, but like anything, use cases is one thing, but what is the business case behind all these use cases? So one thing that I borrow, I'm a former chief architect I'm still an architect and chief architect in many places, but I used to do this as a role, as an employee. And for me, what was super important was tying up what business wants to do with their benefits, trying to have the right architecture, the right product, the right solution, putting it together and build roadmaps. Well, if you reuse this enterprise architecture concept in today's world of data and AI, I do exactly the same thing. I have a problem, a business, a use case that could be solved using technology or not. I did meet situation where they don't have data. Try to machine learn when they don't have that. Well, guess what? I can still do constraint-based operational research, right? I can put rules to minimize or maximize something based on constraint. That still exists. I know we talk a lot about ML, DL, and generative and so on, but pure optimization is also possible. So we use whatever technology using reference of an approach, right? An enterprise architecture roadmap. But one thing we make sure is that it's all tied with benefits. And the other thing we make sure is that we know the cost and we line up based on the business benefits. And the other thing, we decouple those recommendations or changes, because at the end, a roadmap is a series of, let's call that, projects. The thing with projects is they need to be financed. Sometimes they fail. Sometimes you wait for another project, right? When you're in a large company. So the whole thing with this is you need to tie the change with the benefits you will obtain and the cost. And you need to tie the change with the project. So if a project is down, if a project fails, your architecture still exists to reach the benefits, but somehow the story still exists. If you can a project, the story is kind of altered, and therefore your plan is wrong. I also came up with this, and the project management office liked the idea big time, because they liked that I was aligning with the business, and then there was a relationship from project programs to that. So the PMO also became a good friend of us, because we were helping them to do the annual budget, right? So tying everything, enterprise architecture, planning, use of technology, but always keeping in mind we're doing this for generating value. Value is not just about, although it's important, improving revenue could be also cutting expense. We all know that. But it could also be to do new products, right? New product engineering. It could be improving the customer experience. We say this all the time. How about the employee experience? How about team experience? It could be. I have tons of examples in innovation. When we talk to innovation people, they are not necessarily architects. And when we talk to architects, they are not necessarily innovation people. And when we talk to governance people, they are not necessarily architect, and vice versa. So there is a lot of specialties today, and aligning these people, this is really my sweet spot. This is trying to see. So I guess when you say innovation, it's about that. And I do recall when we compare a bit our history, Dave, you were telling me what you were doing, and there were many things that were similar. So the I guess one big difference, you're in California, means versus me in Montreal, but still, at least on the AI, on the academic AI, Canada is much better. So I guess if we can find a way to beef up our investment. It could be an interesting place. I'm not saying it's not that place. We just ranked 3 cities in the top 10%. Well, there's always ranking, obviously, but the point is, it's not a bad place, and we're not that far from you guys, geographically.
Well, it's definitely not. It's definitely a great place, but you sort of combine that. You're an innovator. You're an architect, which is really key, because that means you're a planner and you know how to think ahead when it comes to technology and how to put it to use. And it sounds like you're almost like a finance guy. You're able to put your finance hat on because you've been talking about ROI and tracking cost of projects and value for projects, and a lot of other people are just talking about that now in terms of FinOps and that whole discipline. It sounds like that's something you've been doing for a while. So,
For a while.
Richard, talk to me a little bit about, to make all this work, you need a good data foundation, right?
Yeah.
To be able to innovate at scale. So, talk to me a little bit about what goes into building a good data foundation to enable you to deliver all this value to the business.
Yeah, good point. For me, it's implied, but you're right. If you don't have foundation, because it's one thing to innovate, but how can you innovate at scale? And for me, innovating at scale is companies have hundreds of processes, business processes. Could also be thousands of processes. It depends which business you're looking. Some business are quite large. So first, do you know all the processes? That's one thing. How do you organize the processes? Same thing as how do you organize the data, and do you understand the relationship between data and processes? At the end, process requires an input to be triggered and produce data as an output, and it creates read, update, delete data when you're running the process. So there are tools that I learned in information engineering back in the 90s about how to have a capability architecture, a process architecture, at the same time as doing the data architecture. The funny thing, again, you have data expert, you have process expert. Somehow there is a wall in between, and it's pretty bad. So one of the things I learned in information engineering, this is when I was at Texas Instruments, James Martin's type of approach. Anyway, so when I learned that, I realized how coupled they were. So when we talk about the foundation, if you want to do it at scale, it means you need to have an understanding of the way people talk. A lot of people talk much more process/procedure versus they talk data. It's still the case today. So you need to be able to go back and forth. So, but in order to do this, and I'm not saying it's Richard this time, I'm going to say it's McKinsey. McKinsey did a study in 2018. What constitutes a great data foundation? Only 7-8%, if I'm not wrong, of the companies they survey, and they survey more than 1,000 companies, $1 billion US of revenue or more, across the world, across industry. And they said they need 4 pieces of the foundation. They need an ontology. Now, ontology / taxonomy / semantic model / data mesh / data fabric. Let's say I stop here. It's, let's say, in the same area, right? It describes the concept, what data is being manipulated. Ontology is one thing. The other piece you need is, it's all good if you have all data, but if the data is not of sufficient quality, and quality is not just accuracy, it could be coverage. Do you cover just the US, but Canada, you have view on it? I saw companies who had good accuracy, but geographic accuracy, they didn't have coverage. I saw companies that had aggregated data. So there is many ways to define. I have 7 criteria of what is quality. It's not just about accuracy. So governance was the number, I don't want to say number 1, number 2, but there was ontology, that was one. So / architecture / CDM, the conceptual enterprise data model, semantic layer. I know it's not exactly the same thing, but it's in the same area, let's say. Governance, what do you do to make sure proper process, to make sure data is of the quality required to reach the objective. I'm not saying 100% quality all the time. I'm saying the quality required to reach the objective. I don't want to have 100% of everything perfect. it's not business savvy to do it. I need to do it where it makes sense. This is where the roadmap I was talking earlier comes to play, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I understand the business
Mm-hmm.
case, as you said, the FinOps thinking, MDM also,
Mm-hmm.
because you will have multiple platforms that you're going to use. There is issues, so MDM could be seen as a set of technology that helps you to improve quality. So it goes along with governance, but for them it was a third element of the foundation. And then a flexible data analytics platform. Those were the four key ingredients. And when I talk about the data analytics platform, you recall when I was talking real-time lakehouse. So for me, this is an example of a flexible platform. I use what's called a lambda architecture, where I have a speed layer, I have a batch layer, and I have a serving layer. I played a bit also on that definition. Essentially, my batch layer is quite fast now because I everything goes through. If I'm talking Azure, everything goes to hubs or IoT hubs, and then it goes both in the speed layer to execute some AI, and it goes into the data lake zone to create the raw data, the integrated zone, and the dimensional/consumption zone. And then whatever I put for speed, it's in the serving layer. So it's a subset of the data lake. There are other FinOps reasons for it. I can put a lot of data on cheap storage, blob storage of the lake.
Mm-hmm.
What I need to put
Mm-hmm.
on the serving layer is what requires speed and so on. So again, this is without going into what should be a good lakehouse architecture, and you can do the same thing with Amazon and other cloud. But the point is, this is how I put the data foundation, which is based on McKinsey. But I was doing that before McKinsey did the survey. I was just happy to realize that of the successful company, these are the four pieces identified. The only thing I add to it, I like to have a roadmap, a fundamental roadmap, which is a plan. You said it earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because I plan. So a roadmap is a planning, and it's an actionable planning. Many times people do architecture, people don't know what the hell these guys are doing. But a plan, everybody understand a plan. So that's also one very important thing. In the U.S. government, they did a survey. Architects spend too much time defining what exists because they are
Mm-hmm.
tons. So they define too much time. They take way too much time on defining everything, but not
Mm-hmm.
enough time in doing a strategy, where I'm going, what's the roadmap, because this is the real output. So one little tip for architects on this call is that, guys, if you want to be efficient, you need to line up your roadmap at just, it needs to be finished at the time there is the budgeting process, right?
Mm-hmm.
The multi-months effort where everybody say, I need this, I need this. Well, be ready when that happens, because you will. So my business case is also useful there, because when you have tons of projects, and then there is an executive group here going through, let's say these projects all above this amount, I want to know why, who's the sponsor, for which reason, and what's the business case. You better be ready, and then you better understand the sequence between things for double counting and so on. So that's how I put what's foundation is the ontology, the governance, the MDN, the platform, and a roadmap. Now, on the roadmap, you heard me before talking about use cases. I have more use cases that I can do now because I have the list of processes or the architecture of the processes and the data. So I do like to compile a list. I cannot apply AI on everything, by the way. So it depends. There are much better use cases on processes than other. So I do compile also a list of AI. And in Canada, while I'm here, we have innovation almost equal artificial intelligence. There are almost 50 programs for helping company to grow by using AI. But it could also be blockchain, by the way, digital twins and so on. But there is a lot about AI. So when you compile those lists, it's important because you will reuse the business case not only to sell within the corporation, you will reuse that
Mm-hmm.
list to sell to get subsidies from the government to help you invest so that you can grow the company.
And also invest in your partners too. I see a lot of our customers. It's not just analytics and AI internally, but sharing that with their partners and their supply chain to make their
Yeah,
partners more efficient. And obviously everybody benefits from that. So Richard, like that, this is super good advice for our data leaders out there. Everybody who is a data leader should listen to Richard because you've been through the trenches and you've added that. You're a risk taker, first of all,
yeah.
but you're a risk taker. But when you talk about the roadmap, that's something that's much more of a planner. And so you can take risks, but I like your approach of if you're going to take a risk, doesn't mean you can't plan.
Calculated risk.
There you go. There you go. So Richard, let's wrap up. But
Okay.
I always love to ask any guest on the podcast, what excites you about the future? Like, and that future could be, within the next 5 years, let's say. What do you think? What do you predict might happen? How things might change? What gets you excited about what the future holds for data and analytics?
Um, uh, it's not an easy question, because if I knew I will be one of the richest person in the world, right? So
Right.
it's one thing to innovate; it's something else to know what's going to happen, which part is going to work, which time frame is going to work. Sometimes, many times, I'm too early, and then to realize I should have been more patient, and or the vice versa. I'm using the numbers. I look at price earning ratio, and I never invest. For example, I didn't invest in Nvidia, and I was using their GPU for many years before people knew about GPU. And now I'm looking at their price. I'm like, why did that? Because hundreds of times the PE is not. I was born in 2000 like others, so I guess that's experience. So my point is very tough to predict. What I want, or what I hope, is that we're going to use data and analytics to solve very, very difficult use case. I'm talking here about air pollution because of
Hmm.
wildfire. I'm talking about helping people with healthcare, really helping people. I know people focus on extending life. That will be for the 0.0001% in the next whatever number of years, decade. But it would be nice if we could use data and analytics to improve, make the world better, honestly better for all. So that way, it will be a global lift, might help in reducing war, conflicts, and so on. I really want that it goes there. I know I talk FinOps and I talk business case and so on, but when you ask me for the future, I really hope it's going to be used for the right thing and helping overall the humanity versus what's being done right now. But we need to start somewhere, and as people learn and it becomes a reflex, and people do it at scale, I hope that's where it's going to go. We need some good news, right? We need some innovation that will help everybody. That's really what I'm hoping. What makes me read these articles, go to conference, and come up with the idea. I hope I can contribute to that. My kids will. They are the data scientists and engineers, by the way. So they continue somehow, maybe because I influenced them, maybe I guess as a parent. But
Hey,
that's what I'm hoping
hey,
for.
amen, amen, brother. So, and you're the guy to do it. So, it takes an innovator to really sort of think of how you can use data and a good foundation to really change the world for good. So, with that, Richard, it's been great chatting with you, and to everybody else out there who's listening, be like Richard, be an innovator, and stay data driven. So, thanks for listening. Thanks, Richard.
Thank you. Thanks, Nick. Thanks all.